Introduce our roundtable. So today we'll be talking about programming partnerships, embedding experiential learning into archives instruction, and we'll be discussing the different ways that we as primary source practitioners and professionals have introduced collaborative and programmatic approaches to experiential learning with primary sources at our various institutions. So without further ado, I'll actually begin speaking with my colleague. You could advance to the next slide. So I'm Maya Clark. I'm the Rare Books and Instruction Librarian within Special Collections at the University of Arkansas Libraries. So in my role, I lead our instruction initiatives within the Division of Special Collections, and I also curate and manage our print collections, most notably our Rare Books collection and our Arkansas print collection. So a comprehensive print history of the state of Arkansas. Our special collection space, we are in a newly renovated first floor of our campus library. So we are in new spaces, new ideas, and myself, I am new to our division. So I entered this role in January. This is a new position for the division. So that newness, both personally and professionally, but also with our spaces, has definitely guided the way that I'm approaching instruction and instruction programming within special collections. With myself joining the team, we average around 100 instruction sessions each year. This looks like maybe 1,000 students per year. And these sessions range from introductory to fully course integrated, where primary sources are required for coursework. And throughout all of this, we emphasize the hands-on experience of working with primary sources. So ensuring that students are not only learning how to cite these materials and use them for their assignments, but how to physically engage with them. Yeah.
And hello, everyone. My name is A.L. Nestor. I'm Maya's colleague here at the University of Arkansas Libraries. My role is Experiential Learning Librarian. I am also new to this role, and similar to Maya, this is a new imagining of this work. So I'm supporting our new Experiential Learning department. We have a suite of state-of-the-art creative spaces that are purpose-built and co-located to enable experiential learning instruction in our central library branch. So I represent our spaces that include a makerspace, an audiovisual suite, an extended reality and virtual reality suite, podcast studios, and a visualization lab. My primary focus, similar to Maya, is building our instruction program and co-designing sessions that integrate creative technologies and maker pedagogies into assignments and courses. I'm excited to be here. We're ready for the next slide.
So knowing that AL and I are from different departments within the University of Arkansas Library, we thought it was important to describe how our departments and us as professionals individually define experiential learning. And I know for myself and my division of special collections, that emphasis is really, again, on the hands-on experience. So the literal physical engagement with primary sources, in my case, predominantly print material and rare books. We also try to extend that comprehension of experiential learning into active learning. So in instruction sessions, we try to create space for small and large group discussion so that it is not just eyes on the material and then we are leaving the room. And this also takes shape as guided inquiry. So I ask questions to prompt that discussion, or games such as speed dating with special collections or sort that search, and where we discuss how to search primary sources in a catalog as well as physically on the table. So it really is centered around the primary source material, but focused on hands-on experiences.
And for me, the way I define experiential learning is more on a programmatic view. As the sole faculty librarian responsible to design, deliver, and evaluate our department's instruction program, I make sure that our instructions are grounded in the tools, tech, and expertise of my experiential learning team. We ground our work in the cycle of experiential learning, which is having a concrete experience, reflecting on that experience, conceptualizing new iterations through that experience, and then creating a new experience. I work closely, or I heavily use the maker literacies competencies, which our moderator will share a link to in the chat. These were developed by a team led out of UT Arlington Libraries to complement existing frameworks for information, media, and primary source literacies. So these are something that if you're interested in experiential learning in your work as primary source practitioners, these might help you in your work as well. We're ready for the next slide.
So the thing that became very clear to us early in our partnering as new faculty members in our library, but also as people trying to expand instruction within our respective departments, is that we have the same goal of creating experiences that are hands-on and active, but we have different toolkits and we have different spaces. So we have partnered in programming both with our staff, but also with students and teaching faculty to think about ways that special collections and experiential learning the department can act as stepping stones to one another. So combining our unique but related approaches to experiential learning as a kind of 1-2 step to two spaces in the library that are often misunderstood by students or underrepresented in broader instruction efforts.
And by collaborating together and partnering, we can make sure that our outreach to faculty and students is not confusing, and it's very clear what the library has to offer and how they can access those services. We're ready
Next
for the
slide,
next
please.
slide.
So as an example of some programming that we started with and get to continue with, luckily, is we co-taught a communications course, so Communications in a Diverse World, whose final assignment includes the creation of a zine communicating a complex topic in a more accessible way through the zine format. So we approached this library instruction session as a kind of two-pronged session with each of our departments. So in that first session, students from this communications course visited special collections and got to participate in a collaborative, interactive lecture on the history of zines. And then we're able to explore our Arkansas zine collection, which is stewarded by special collections. So these are zines from artists, creatives, educators, and students in the state of Arkansas that we steward and continue to collect.
And during that session, Maya and I were able to lesson plan together and provide primers for the students' next experience in that session. So letting them know that in the next session, they would be joining us in the makerspace and kind of introducing them to what that experience would be. And then when they came for their second session, we provided all the materials and tools they needed to create zines together. We provided prompts that got them discussing their work together, and we did instruction on folding and formatting techniques. Ready for the next
So
slide.
And some other programming that we're really excited to proceed with, thinking of ways to connect our two departments, include a typography instruction session using special collections typographic material and a staff cross-training with the Makerspace staff, which I will let AL speak more to.
Yes, so the objective of this orientation cross training session is to empower the staff that work in my department of experiential learning in our studios to access the archives independently as individuals, but also to engage in collaborative program ideation together. So looking at how we can add primary sources to enhance program we're already doing or design programming together using both of our spaces and services. Another opportunity for us to collaborate is using more high-tech materials that we have available through experiential learning. One collaboration we're exploring is using an augmented reality platform called MergeCube to provide alternative ways to engage with three-dimensional materials that are a part of special collections.
And so special collection stewards for cuneiform texts, 3 tablets, and 1 Uruk cone, which we see frequent use in instruction. So we're trying to imagine ways that we can expand access to those materials outside of, the real thing. Not that that's not available to students, but we're really trying to think of ways to increase access when people can't always make it to our reading room or our classroom. And the thing that we want to emphasize and end on is that this is really just the beginning for our partnership. It was really great joining this university and being able to see what instruction is already happening within special collections in ways that we can expand teaching with primary sources outside of our division and into all other lesser represented parts of the library. So thank you.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay? Fabulous. Okay. So my name is Claire Dunker, and I am the outreach archivist and an associate professor at the University of Nebraska at Omaha Chris Library Archives and Special Collections. So the UNO Chris Library Archives and Special Collections is home to the university's unique, rare, and specialized research materials. Archives and Special Collections is open to campus and community, whether affiliated with the university or not. So today I'm going to share about our internship program in Archives and Special Collections, which allows interns and practicum students, both UNO and non-UNO students, to experience an introduction to archival work and a specific program area and talk about the various partnerships that have evolved from this program. So we in ASC have always had student workers, interns, and practicum students, but the latter two were not a formalized program, but rather on an on-demand basis. The pandemic changed this and showed us opportunities for growth for a more structured intern and practicum program, really focusing on the partnerships with the students as well as their home departments and institutions. So my colleague Lori and my former colleague Wendy and I determined a structure where students would apply for a specific track in either outreach, processing, or digital archives. And our main intention was that students would experience working with archival and primary sources in ways that introduced key concepts, unfamiliar aspects of the field, spark curiosity about the ways in which these three different areas interact, and create opportunities for in-person and remote students. Next slide, please. So my university defines experiential learning in very workforce-focused language, as you can see from the slide. And so Archives and Special Collections and our internship program tries to echo this strategic emphasis, but in language that is relevant to our field. So for this specific internship program, unfortunately, until very recently, we were unable to pay interns. So all interns and practicum students did have to take an internship for credit. The framework of our internship included elements such as completing a learning plan with their home program director to connect our learning outcomes with the ones from those classes. So we developed a framework that directed students to understand that the work of both archivists and them as interns was not siloed or invisible. We accomplish this by having students complete assigned readings, conduct informational interviews with other archivists and librarians, creating social media posts about the collections they encountered and the work that they completed. Students also had a final presentation and exit interview where they shared what they learned, how it connected or enhanced their coursework, and their goals for the future. So we really view this as a partnership with students as aiding in their career trajectories. Next slide, please. So on this slide, you can see just some of the ways that this program was implemented. So every intern and practicum student was given an orientation, library tour, safety overview. Social media was mandatory for all students to share what they learned. However, students did not have to be in that social media. It could be an anonymous, ASC intern. They did not have to be on social media. They just had to write the posts, again, in an effort to show that the work that's done in archives is not invisible labor. So each project track had their own significant elements for engaging students with primary sources. In my case of outreach, I've always emphasized that the role of that outreach plays in relation to the other two areas. How without things like processing, description and arrangement, and digital archives, I can't do my job. And conversely, how outreach enhances the discoverability and accessibility of the other two areas. So in my example, students that select an outreach track do readings on writing label text, creating zines, and shadowing archival instruction classes, both embedded or a reading about embedded and one-shot instruction sessions. So by the end of their interns or practicums, students will have curated an exhibit flat case, created a zine, and shadowed an instruction session as their schedule allows. I always offer students to do a discrete portion of that instruction session, something like the collection description, if they want to. So far, no one has taken me up on it, but I live in hope. Next slide, please. So our evaluation and pilot phase of this internship program ran roughly from 2020 to 22, and we had 9 interns and practicum students. From 2023 to the spring of 26, we had 15 students, which included about an 18-month period where we did not have digital archives as an option because my colleague Wendy left UNO and while we were waiting to hire my new colleague April. We're really lucky that a number of our interns return as student workers to archives and special collections. We love seeing our returning students and watching them grow in knowledge and confidence around archival material and primary sources. So a lot of our students come from UNO departments, specifically the history department, teacher education, which houses our undergraduate library program, and the art and art history program. We also have a number of students that come from online programs, either fully remote or students who are physically in Omaha but are pursuing out-of-state degrees because there are no MLIS programs in the state of Nebraska. We've had students from the University of Kentucky iSchool, Wayne State University, and San Jose State. Our partnerships have grown with those organizations as they recommend more students to us. We're also really excited for our newest partnership with the UNO College of Arts and Sciences Mellon Foundation grant Humanities in Action, the Maverick Internship Program, which is a cross-college initiative designed to expand access to paid credit-bearing internship opportunities for humanities majors. So with this grant, we will actually have our first paid internship through this program in the fall. And it will allow us to kind of see how that works and hopefully have more paid interns through this program in the future. Next slide, please. So we've been really happy with our internship program thus far, and as we go forward, we're really thinking about capacity to ensure that our students have a great experience, as well as ensuring that we as archivists don't burn out. Happy to chat more about this in the roundtable, and thank you all so much.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Emily Redman, and I'm the Associate Archivist at the Oberlin College Archives. So at the Oberlin College Archives, we have a slightly smaller staff than our two previous presenters. We have about 10,000 linear feet of material and two teaching archivists who are also our only archivists. So we are teaching as just one part of our other duties. We have around 50 instructional sessions per year, and those are for faculty courses. We also teach winter term classes, which archivists design themselves, and I'll talk about that a bit more in a moment. But those are 100-hour practicums, and we've been teaching 2 to 3 of those per winter term. And last year, we began offering an independent study as another way for students to access experiential learning. In terms of experiential learning at the Oberlin College libraries, we prioritize hands-on work with collection materials in all of our instructional sessions. So that can include theory and practice. It's often tailored to what faculty members want, but centered on authentic assignments or things that might teach at least a real-world deliverable. So this could be search strategies for archival collections or visual and material culture literacy, working hands-on with an object to try to understand what it is, how it means, and what kind of connections we could draw from it. Our archiving practicums and internships are typically, as I said, courses designed and led entirely by our archivists. And those usually include processing and describing collections, sort of as a participatory sort of group archiving practice. And sometimes these are taken by students who are interested in pursuing archives as a career because we're teaching entirely undergraduate students. Other times, these are students who are interested in the topic or theme of the collection being processed. So that's been a really fun way to start to interface with people across campus that we might not typically see. We have also, in the past year, rolled out a program of distinctive collections workshops and grants. So last fall, we held a faculty workshop that centered archivist and librarian or faculty paired demonstrations. So it would be someone who has taught frequently, usually an embedded sort of course in the archives or in our special collections, and the archivist or librarian for that collection talking about how they sort of set up the class, how it worked, and how students responded to it. And that was set up to sort of inspire other faculty members to hopefully apply for these $1,000 grants that were available to either fully redesign a syllabus or to propose a new class that would be embedded in the archives. So we rolled out the first of those classes last year. Decolonizing ethnomusicology was the first one, and that was a partnership between our conservatory special collections, the archives, and our conservatory faculty. I think that went well, and you can see some sort of assessment of that class in just a few minutes. And we were planning all the way out through the spring of 2027 when we'll be partnering up for Sport in America. And those are another really interesting way for us to begin partnering with people across campus, including new majors like our sports major, which has just been proposed. Other collaborations that we've sort of begun to explore includes the use of multiple collections and resources in one course. So I know that previously another pair of our presenters talked about how it's less confusing in the way that they've set it up. I would say that the way that our archives and special collections are set up is still confusing. And so we have tried to make that less confusing by pulling relevant materials for classes like the history of photography from each of the collections that might be relevant without the faculty member having to try to navigate that. And I think that's something that we'd like to explore more in the future. We've also collaborated with staff here on campus, including the Summer Institute research workshops. So those set up students who are working on a year-long project, usually a capstone or honors thesis, to begin using primary sources, whether in our archives and special collections or somewhere else, for success in their search and citation. This has also led us to begin to fill gaps in our collection as we work with more student groups and they realize that the archives, whose mission is to preserve the history of Oberlin College from a variety of diverse perspectives, collects student work. So this is a really wonderful way for us to set up future winter terms that focus on processing a student collection because sometimes those records are especially challenging to make their way to us. In terms of assessment, which I know we'll be talking about a bit later in the roundtable, we've only just started to embed assessment into these programs. Our reference and instruction staff were incredibly helpful in setting this up for the Decolonizing Ethnomusicology class, which was grant funded. And so that did have this sort of assessment portion as part of it. We got some really wonderful feedback, as you can see on this slide. When I teach archiving practicums during winter term, assessment is also something that I've been trying to be better about forcing students to do. But it's also something that in the future we're considering adding for faculty after each class. And I know that that's something that our reference team has already rolled out. We're considering other formats of collaboration, including more participatory or maker-centered classes, as well as some additional collaboration across campus. But this is what we have going on so far, and I'm excited to hear the rest of the discussion.
Right. Hi, folks. My name is Blake. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a teaching and learning archivist at Harvard University in our Archives and Special Collections unit, which is a unit that includes technical and public services across the Harvard University Archives and Houghton Library. Houghton is Harvard University's sort of large special collections library, rare books, manuscripts, a lot of strength in literature and performing arts. And HUA is the oldest and one of the largest university archives in the country, given Harvard's age, a huge, massive material. Across these two repositories, our team teaches, this year we had over 300 classes, but that is certainly not a single person's output. We have 2 to 3 people who teach, whose teaching is a big part of their job, like myself, and then good chunks of people, 9 people, 4 people, who have different class loads that they also contribute. So a big team effort. Personally, I teach around 40, 50 sessions per year. And I have been at Harvard since late 2024. And part of I'm a new position, was to increase the engagement with the university archives materials for classes. So there's been a lot of new builds using the archives materials or refreshes or cross-repository classes where we integrate university archives material along with Houghton materials. We do have an internal teaching philosophy, and I thought I'd put part of it here in that we talk less about experiential learning, but really focus on active learning, hands-on learning that centers users in active learning techniques and hopefully meets many different types of learner preferences in terms of universal design. But I'll chat a little bit about that in the next slide or later on. So next slide, please. So today I'm talking about a partnership with a group at Harvard called the Mindich Program in Engaged Scholarship. And this is really sort of the major place at Harvard where academics is meeting and serving our outside community, and students practice those skills. So they integrate sort of community and civic service and engagement. They have grown a lot over the past 10 years, as you can see, and there's a really good chunk of faculty who are affiliated with this program. They do give out a certificate, and they basically have 3 course types, moving sort of from foundational theory and practice courses to engage public engagement prep classes that are a little bit of mix. And then lastly, these immersive small classes where a group basically does partner with a community unit to produce something that the community partner wants or needs. So they obviously sort of define engaged learning in this specific way in terms of scholarship that is engaged outside of academia to meet and to listen to community needs. We do engage with the MPS program a little bit in ASC in terms of our classes, but it's only about 6 per semester, so it's pretty small given the number of courses that they have going on. So our partnership is trying to change that. Next slide, please. So basically, this was a little bit random and partly why I wanted to present today, because maybe you have a unit like this at your university. In March, I had a very successful, in my opinion, class visit with a faculty member at HUA, and they happened to be the MPS ES co-director. And they said, we take our faculty out to get experiences and to learn about things on campus that might fit with their classes. Could we do a workshop for all of our faculty? So at the end of the semester in early May, we ran a workshop for them. They did outreach because they sort of provide these opportunities for their faculty list, and I handled the workshop. At the workshop, this is sort of what we did. We did an introduction to the repositories, more in depth than what I did for you all in terms of our strengths and collections and genre types. We talked about our teaching program, services that are available to them, and then covered all of the logistics of requesting, how it works, the time, etc. We did then a warm-up activity so they get a little bit of a flavor of what we might do in a class. And that activity focused on materials about Harvard Community Connections. So I wanted to emphasize them that not only do some of our learning outcomes and activities pair with their goals, but I think our actual collections do too. And that we have a lot of town and gown stuff, where we have a lot of Harvard working in the community, or past students or faculty groups that have done community engagement. And then we sort of had activity stations that would mimic a larger portion of class. We didn't do the full activity, but they sort of got to imagine what it would be like. We had a curation station because a lot of these programs, they were telling me the eventual outcome is an exhibit, or this connected to the second station at historical storytelling, helping a community partner beef up the way that they're telling their story, or communicating about themselves to a certain audience. And then lastly, we had a station that focused on archival research. And then in closing, we had a very robust discussion, a lot of questions, and they had a takeaway handout, which I've linked to here, that basically, of course, gave them my contact information, but also showcased those 6 classes, or a chunk of them that I mentioned that we do engage with. Like, what do they do when they come and visit us? How does that work? What are the assignments that they do? And then a short version of the guidelines for primary source literacy to sort of show to them, like, hey, we have a lot of classes that come for this goal, to give us some shared language for discussion, for discussing things. And the thing I sort of want to emphasize here is that I think their work to prepare students for community engagement projects has a real connection to our collections, as I mentioned, and that we feature a lot of community work or discussions of local issues, but it also pairs with sort of our active learning foundation. And if they're focusing on foundational skill building for working with communities and people that might be different from them, we do a lot of empathy and curiosity driven analysis. We do creative storytelling, even around issues that might not feel like our own or might feel very far in the past. And so they can practice things like that storytelling or research or creation skills with us. And it was just not a group that I had thought maybe really actively about being a good fit for our program. And so if you have units on your campus or wherever you are that are doing sort of focused community engagement work, you might have some connections there that you hadn't thought of. And now we have, via this workshop, a model that we will take to other faculty workshops. This would be something that I could really easily adapt for a certain department or other sort of focus groups on campus. So thank you all for listening to that, and we'll move it along.
So big round of applause to my other roundtable participants. And Lee, I think at this time we'll stop recording. That way the discussion is not recorded. And to kind of